traditional mental health looks at, this is where you are and these are all your problems. How do we get you back to normal or baseline? Whereas I love that positive psychology kind of goes, this is where you are. How do we just move forward from here?
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is an intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Steph Williams. She helps millennial women feel safe enough to rest and live a slower, simpler life beyond overwhelm and depletion. She's an ACC-accredited coach from the ICF, and today we're going to talk about that and a lot more. And Steph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely grateful. I think I always love to just begin with, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess really different to my current wellness coaching business, my background is actually about 14 years in child protection services here in Australia, working with Indigenous children, young people and families. So really heavy trauma-based work for a really long time. And so I guess that was really strangely the start of the journey to creating a wellness business for women. So the industry I was working in was really high burnout rates, as you can probably imagine. And most people stay in it for about 2.5 years. And I soldiered on for over the decade. And at my own sort of detriment in a lot of ways. Beautiful work. I loved working with families and children, but it took its toll. And it got to a point where I guess my body was starting to break down from the excessive cortisol and stress that I was experiencing. And I think so many of us, COVID came and jolted everyone and gave me this huge, experience of reflection that I don't think a lot of us really have often enough. So it really slowed everyone down, COVID, and I kind of started realizing just how unwell my work was making me. And that my lifestyle was it wasn't sustainable. And as a woman and someone wanting to start a family, there was no space for any of that. So I guess that period of reflection sort of led me to start going, well, what other directions would I head in? Because I think so often our identities sort of intertwine with our careers, right? So you go to a party and the first thing someone asks you is, what do you do? So I guess, I started really considering, okay, what else would life look like if I wasn't Steph, the social work manager, So I started studying positive psychology and well-being and started doing my coaching certification and just really fell in love with pos psych stuff. And I guess all things human behavior have always been of interest to me. And it all came to a bit of a head when my employer basically offered me a redundancy because my role was being restructured within the organization. And I took it as an opportunity to go, okay, well, life can really change now. This is the fork in the road. So I looked at my partner and said, everything's going to change and I'm going to get a new job and let's get out of this huge house. We have this huge house and we're both just working all the time. So every time we had 5 minutes, on a weekend, we were spending it cleaning and doing lawns. And I was like, this isn't what I want from my life. I live 5 minutes from the beach and I never have time to get there. So we moved into this tiny little villa on the beach, got rid of all our stuff, and just downsized everything and started living really minimally. I really embraced that sort of slow living space and did a lot of healing because, it's such a long time working with so much trauma and carrying so many other people's emotions. I had to really shed all of that and, I guess, unravel my identity from being this Steph, the social worker, to who do I want to be now and what kind of meaningful work can I do in life? And that was quite the journey. And you know, had a lot of physical changes from that de-stressing process, where like my heartbeat was reducing. I quit vaping, which would become like this anxiety crutch for me over years. Like I did all these different things. I was getting out into nature every day. I was walking on the beach, and just slowly started physically, mentally, and emotionally healing from that real quite severe burnout process. That kind of led me to where I am.
Wow. Yeah, that positive psychology, it's really like powerful stuff. Like I'm all about sharing the tools and the VIA character strengths, and just we can do whatever we want, right? And we don't know. It's just a narrative in our head. And sometimes it does take to go to the bottom and get rock bottom to like make us realize. And it sounds like you realize like health is wealth, right? Like there's nothing more important. And I was the same. I didn't know that until I got sick. And then it was like, I don't care about money. I don't care about chasing status and all this stuff. I just want to be healthy and enjoy life. And part of the slow living idea, and I love it, what you're doing, is that like to return zest and vitality to our life.
100%. I agree. Like positive psychology, I think, is sort of the real foundation of the work that I'm doing. And I love, you know, traditional mental health looks at, you know, this is where you are and these are all your problems. How do we get you back to normal or baseline? Whereas I love that positive psychology kind of goes, this is where you are. How do we just move forward from here? And I really love that less of a deficit focus for people, and the fact that we can always just be moving forward in, you know, in a more positive direction.
Yeah. I used to know a guy, he was a paramedic, an ambulance, and he said wherever he went, he was always going towards trouble and trauma and tragedy. And when he retired, he started delivering flowers. And now everywhere he goes, he's making people smile. And I'm sure he's
Oh,
helping people the other way.
that's so
Right?
beautiful.
Yeah.
And it does, it has such a toll. Like we don't realize, I guess, our daily choices of just a career and our commutes and all those things that actually have such a significant impact on our health and well-being. And I think you can work in any space and say mentally safe with really strong boundaries, but you have to really consider, does this align with my values? And as much as I loved helping children, young people, families in the most traumatic incidences, it's not how I wanted to spend my life. You know, I can still do meaningful work, as we all can, without it looking like that.
Yeah. I don't know how is this happening. I keep bringing towards me things about positive psychology and all these ideas and like values. You just said it. It reminded me again. Lately, like the past couple of episodes, all I've been talking about is like values. If you know your values, then it takes all the stress or any anxiety out of it, because it's like, I'm enjoying this conversation, but if my wife and kids call me and they need me to come pick them up right now, I'm out of here. And it's nothing personal. It's just, you know, what you're, so if you know your highest values, it's like, okay, well, which value is higher, which is going to help me? And it helps to align. I think
Uh,
you sound very like empathic, and like that can happen not just in the space you used to be in, but also in this space where you can take on your client's energy. And so how do you combat or deflect against that?
I've always rung true, like ever since I've done a lot of my inner work to get to where I am. I think Brené Brown's quote of the most compassionate people have the strongest boundaries. And, you know, we often don't think about that. We think the compassionate person is just there for us all the time, but it's actually not, because that, you know, and I was that person. So I can definitely say that I would just take on everything at my own detriment, to the point where I was running myself into the ground. And very common problem, particularly for women, is we can be real people pleasers. You know, and I think that it's about, how do I stay safe and well with strong boundaries so that I can be my best self for you when I can. So I guess I have some really strong boundaries around what that looks like, and my engagement with people. And I'm quite an introverted extrovert, so I know that energetically I need a lot of alone time, and I try and match the work that I'm doing with my energy. So morning times like now, I'm high energy, but as the afternoon sort of rolls on, that really lulls for me. So I try not to do too much client facing stuff because I'm more susceptible to, I guess, taking on that heavier energy of theirs.
Like it feels like you were in this group I did earlier today because I was talking about Brene Brown. I was talking about as the day goes on, make sure that you schedule certain tasks earlier because the energy will go. And wow, fascinating. Um, as a ICF accredited coach, wellness coach, like for millennial women, what are the biggest challenges you see facing them today?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the modern day women, we're expected just to do it all. And it's not to say I think that, men have their own set of complex issues now as society sort of evolves and moves forward. But for women, we're expected to have a career, work full time, but also at the same time, we've got to climb the ladder, have children by a certain age, get married by a certain age, look after our aging parents, be the best friend. And we've just got to be good and available to absolutely everyone. And we've got to look good while we're doing it. Because, there's this expectation around how everyone should look as well. And the amount of pressure that places on a person is not sustainable. And I guess on top of that, we're running these houses often, or at least contributing to running these huge houses full of all this stuff because we're full of consumerism now. And I just think women have this unique set of issues where when we view it as never good enough because you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
It's really, it's quite unfair to do to ourselves.
It is. And there's like this archetype from way back, and it's still like, so it's entrenched. So it's going to take a little bit of time to switch it. And it's happening. We see it. I wonder, was there anything particular that surprised you about like going from that running that rat race and go, 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 go nonstop? You said you come home, you live right beside the beach, you don't even get to go there because you're just wrecked by the end of the day. Now slow living, minimalism. Was there something that surprised you when you started to step into that power?
A few things. I think probably the biggest would be, and I think a lot of people resonate with the fact that we have this complete inability to stay still and to rest. Like, it's like, if I have this huge big day, then I deserve to rest and have a nap. And I deserve to have a coffee uninterrupted for 10 minutes. Whereas I think that was really hard for me, was learning to be still again. And, I was slowly integrating things like meditating and whatnot, but it's so uncomfortable to start with because we kind of get a little bit addicted to the chaos and the busyness. And if we're go, 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 then we're achieving, and that's success, right? So I think learning to be still is really uncomfortable, but so necessary, and viewing rest as something that we need to be doing in order to do our most productive work, rather than if we don't have all this busyness, then we don't deserve rest. So I think those two shifts were the biggest ones for me, and something I think I still battle with, because society is going all the time, and everyone's busy, busy, busy. Like, you see someone and you go, "Oh, how are you?" "We're just so busy." It's like this little badge we're all wearing. So it's something we've all got to, including me, still fight at times to say, no, I'm not going to get sucked into that lifestyle again.
Yeah, for sure. Joe Dispenza, he talks about when meditating, when you first start, like you're gonna want to go and you're going everywhere and your brain just goes, right? It's just part of it. But he's like, if you can like be like a dog and just train, sit, eventually over time, the dog will sit. And so it's the same with us almost. We have to. And I find if you carve out that time, like let's start with 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is, but it actually gives you back more time later on in your day because your mind isn't just, you're like, ooh, calmer, more slow living.
We got to give ourselves a little bit of grace, right? Like, everything we do to start with is a little bit awkward, a little bit clunky. And I think that so many people get turned off by meditation because they're like, oh my God, I can't do this. And as you said, even if you can commit to a minute,
Right.
it will give back to you tenfold for sure.
I'm a good one. So, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling guilty about slowing down? Because, like you say, we're just trained to go, 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 go.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of mums, particularly about this, where they say, oh no, I feel really guilty if I just go and have, my cup of coffee and leave the kids, with dad or blah, blah, blah. I think that it's, if you can flip it in your mind and see it as you're kind of almost selfish if you don't look after you, because you're then not giving 100% to your children, to your partner, to yourself. And it's a little bit selfish. They deserve the best version of you. So it really pulls at the heartstrings of someone who's quite, selfless at times, to go, well, let me see it in this way, that if I actually do this, I can give them the best of me. I can be the best of me.
You were in that group earlier.
Oh, really?
Talking, yeah, we were talking about that again. I was a couple of them. So the group is for anxiety, depression, chronic pain. But I was saying, like, treat yourself. It's coming up on Christmas. We're like the season to like give gifts, but what about giving yourself a gift? And I'm like, it doesn't have to be big, but the intention of doing something like that.
Yeah. I actually, one of my favorite things to try and help people to integrate is what I call a pause. A lot of men prefer to use the word brain break when I work with them, but how do you implement and weave throughout your day these tiny little moments of pause? And, maybe we can't give ourselves a whole hour's lunch break, but if we can give ourselves 10 minutes to get up from our desk and go for a walk and actually pause without our phones, without something ringing and dinging, how do we create more of those moments of pause throughout our day?
Yeah, for sure. So nature is a big part of that. What does that look like? Even more than just going for a walk at lunchtime, but to bring nature and like to connect with it.
For sure. So normally, if it wasn't so hot today, I would be meeting you outside. So I like to meet all my clients when we're in nature. So sometimes that can be like walking coaching sessions. Sometimes we're just sitting and grounding outside, whether that's in the garden, whether it's on the beach. I think it's really important. We weren't evolutionary born to be inside of these four walls, little cubicles every day. It's not healthy for our well-being. So for me, and what I try and encourage is from the moment we wake up to be actually, like, I rise with the sun. So I'm up about 5:30 every morning, and that natural sunlight meeting our eyes and getting outside. So whether that's just picking up, I'm a little bit docile in the morning, so I take my little cup of coffee and go sit on the balcony and just sort of take it all in and be outside, fresh air. How do we actually wake with the rising sun? And then how do we, as I said, just creating little pockets where we can be outside, where we can take a walking meeting. If we're on the phone with someone, getting up from our desk and going outside. If we're having time with our partner on the weekends, rather than sitting inside at a restaurant, sitting outside, how do we create more time in nature? For me, I spend most of my days outside. Whether that's at the beach, and I've got like the luck of having like a lot of bushland nearby, so going on bushwalks and just sitting in nature and having time out, because we all know green space is very good for us.
For sure. I have an affirmation. I got hundreds of affirmations, but I go through them daily. One of them is that the answers come to me in nature, and I swear they always come in nature.
Yeah, that's when our brains can slow down, and we're not constantly, micromanaging and on our phones, and actually present.
Is it difficult for people to do this? Like, does it take long? Like, some coaching, like techniques, they're quick, but something like this sounds like it might take a little bit more time.
Yeah, so that's why I guess I have one main offering, which is 4 months, because it really takes a lot of inner work to help us to slow down, depending on, where we are on the spectrum of our needs. But I think that at a minimum, it takes 4 months. And I think we need support with it, right? Because as much as we say, I want to look after my self-care, that's a really hard thing to do. When we're in that space of burnout and chaos all the time, it's really hard to see sort of the wood between the trees and what I'm trying to help women achieve is it's a real lifestyle shift, and that's not an overnight piece of work.
Yeah, it's powerful. If so, there's like, is there some myths that you could debunk, like anything like about slow living? So, like, let's say somebody's, oh, well, I have to just work. I got the 9 to 5, then I got the kids, then I got to drive them to the dance, and then whatever, and like, take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think there's a few things, right? So I think a lot of people think slow living is like this aesthetic. You've got to have this perfect home and everything's white linen and relaxing. And it just doesn't have to be. It's really a values driven lifestyle. And it's really about how do I peel back all the excess noise and things that I do that don't align with what I really want. So for me, like ironing, I'm unless it has to be ironed, it's not getting ironed in my household. And some people would like balk at that, but I'm like, I hate ironing. I don't want to. I'd rather spend my time outside. I'd rather spend my time with walking my dog. That's what I really enjoy and where I want to focus my energies. So, if we have finite time on this earth, how do we really want to spend it? And I think there's a lot of myths around slow living that it has to look a certain way. It doesn't. It's about what does it look like for you and how do you peel back all the excess to get to what you really want. And I think there's a lot of myths even around coaching. Coaches are a dime a dozen these days online, and they'll be all spamming your inbox, which makes me cringe. But I think, there's a lot of myths around what that looks like. But if you get a well-trained coach who is accredited, who has experience, it can be really life-changing because not all of us align with needing therapy, right? I've had therapists in the past and they're amazing, but not necessarily is the work I need to do going to align with a therapist. But, I have my own coach as well. So, yeah.
And so, one thing for people to know, to get ICF accredited, you have to put in hundreds and hundreds of hours of actual coaching. So it's not like you went and bought a certificate overnight and then you're a coach the next day. It's actually like a lot of work.
It took me pretty much about a year. You go through like a mentorship coaching program. That one alone was 3 months long. Then you sit a 3-hour test, and then you do like a video submission of an actual coaching session. It's quite grueling, actually, and really disheartening that, there is sort of this misconception that coaches are kind of these pyramid schemers, where it's just not the case. And that's why I say, like, look at people's accreditations, make sure that you align with, the type of coaching that they're wanting to do with you.
100%. Can you walk us through one of your coaching techniques that helps to not feel guilty about slow living, or just even to help with starting the process of slow living?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the start of every coaching session, I always do what's a clearing the space activity. So that basically helps us to center into the moment. And I think that's always helpful. So one of my favorite ways to do that, to bring body and brain together, is where you do like an entire body squeeze for 30 seconds and hold, and then a huge release. And it actually brings our brains into our bodies and helps us to really ground into the space. So physiologically, that's what I like to do with people. But then I guess, as I mentioned, like I think creating pauses in your day and actually diarizing them. If you've got a huge, big, busy day, putting in brain break, pause break into your day, and maybe you start off just with one, but how do you create more of them? Or how do you have a mindfulness bell on your phone that tells you every 2 hours you need to get up from your desk and it dings and it reminds you? So how do we create these little habits throughout our day that help us to learn to slow down?
Yeah, my watch, I didn't even set it up. It just came like that. And it tells you, like, after a certain while, you've been sitting too long, and you can, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that thing. It's a little reminder, right? And we can get, particularly if we're behind screens, we can get really drawn in and stuck on them, right? And so it is a great little reminder to just pop up, move your body.
So we got meditation, we got nature. I think you just said journaling. Those are 3 things right there that if somebody is listening and they're like, don't have time for that. I'm just rush, rush, go, go nonstop. You can carve out a little time, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night to start, just something to start the process. And that will begin to shift. It's like a big ocean liner that's slow. It's not going to turn around on a dime, but it slowly start the process.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It doesn't take much. It's those tiny little habits, right, that we can start to weave into our day. And if we've got a poor habit, how do we replace it with a positive one?
Yeah, not get rid of it, replace it, right?
Yeah.
I love it. The big important question that everybody wants to know about, how do you get cozy with your house plants and your cat?
There's one sitting here right now. There's I'm
I,
picturing it well. Yeah.
I saw
No.
it on your website, so I was just like, ah.
Yeah, no, like I definitely, as I mentioned on my website, like I have way more plants than I do furniture. And I think, having green around my home is just so calming. And I've got lots of like very minimal, but very calming feeling. Because I think, our environment, is so impactful on us.
Yeah. And so one more at this time of year, we're looking at like future vision, future planning, right? We're kind of reviewing where we did last year and where we're gonna go next year. I was talking about this last week, how we're like on a 5 year, right? So 2020, I plan pretty good, but especially when it's like on the zeros or fives, like 2020, 2025. So we're in 2025 and we're trying to like plan out the year. And so personally, me, I got these whiteboards and I plan out all the things I want to do. And then it's like, oh, you know what? If I do this in February and this in April, then it's not as overwhelming. And that's just my process. But do you have a process that you do or walk clients through at this time of year, especially?
I feel like I look at New Year's really differently to other people. So often we're looking at it as what more can I do next year? What if we did less? What if there was something we actually wanted to retract so that we could make space for more? So, what do we want to remove? Is it, I want to look, I want to stop saying yes to things that I don't really want to do. I want to, what does that look like? So how do we retract, so that we can create more space?
That's slow living, right? Trying to
Do
remove
less
some of
with
the
more.
obstacles. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Stephanie. It sounds like the life that I want. I love your website and everything about it, even just the typography, but that's the nerd in me. I guess I ask everyone this question. This is a phase 4 podcast, and phase 4 in the 6 phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's all about creating a future 3 years out. So where's Stephanie 3 years from today?
Work-wise, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. And I think doing that consistently, reaching, like I see it as a ripple effect. Like every woman I work with shares something with someone they know, and it just ripples out amongst, I guess, society. So there's like a little mini revolution of slow living happening amongst my network. So professionally, that would look how it is, and basically still living life on the beach, a little more travel and some little people, and that's about it. I'm happy with
Best. That's my favorite answer. I'm in Toastmasters and they asked this question the other week. Same, not my question, but kind of like, where do you want to be in the future? Or like, what do you want to change? That was it. What do you want to change? And it was kind of like, I'm pretty good. I just want to expand more. I like everything that's happening. And that's how you know you're aligned too.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
How about one lesson you wished you learned sooner? Like, let's say when you were back in that old Steph who is going through that, trying to help and trying to be everything to everyone. Was there a lesson that you were like, man, I wish I kind of learned that. Wish I learned that sooner.
I think that just how disconnected I was from my body, and how our body is not just whispering sometimes, but screaming at us to stop. So, I've got a thing where I know if this shoulder starts to rise and it's practically an earring, that I'm stressed, and that's my first sign. Or if I'm starting to clench, so I was at the point back then where I was waking up with fingernail marks in my hands from the anxiety of clenching. So my body was screaming at me and I would not listen. So I think learning to sort of notice this is what's happening with my body. What is it trying to tell me? And actually hearing that and slowing down.
Yeah, that's so important, right? When we're in that stress and that response is just constantly turned on and you're not getting rest or repair, it's just, you can't even see. Like somebody could be standing there, like holding a sign with the answer, and you're just straight ahead, not even noticing.
Yeah. Yeah. So just tuning back in and trying to notice, well, what does that mean for me? I wonder why I'm getting headaches at 3 p.m. every day. I wonder why I'm searching for coffee by 4 p.m. every day. You know, what is my body trying to tell me?
Yeah. I'm just looking at your website and it's just, man, it's so good. But like, she's saying she knows what it's like to lose yourself in your work, sacrifice your well-being for others all the time, spend every moment caretaking, worrying, earning, and feeling overwhelmed, exhausted. And I think a lot of people are like that. I think at the beginning you talked about COVID, how it forced the reset. Well, slowly everyone's back to the old thing and it's hustle bustle again. And so,
I feel like it's amped up a little now, to be honest.
oh yeah. So I'm just reading this and encouraging everyone to go check it out. And she even has a free gift. We're gonna share that with you. I guess before I ask my final question, is there anything you'd like to share? So if you have something to sell, sell it. If you have a message of hope or inspiration or both, just take it away.
Oh, I guess the one thing that I'd love to be able to share with people, and particularly this time of the year, I'm running it as my birthday special. So if they book it before the end of January, it's free. That they can come and do a 30-minute free reflective coaching session with me, which is called Pause. And it's basically my website, www.stephwilliams.co/pause. And they can sign up and book that in before end of January and they get it free.
Amazing. So happy birthday to you and happy birthday to the Phase 4 family. And my last question is usually how can people reach you? But maybe since you answered that, how about some books? Sounds like you must have, do you read? I don't know. There must have been like some kind of learning. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I am a big YouTuber, big reader. But I guess so I'm an Aboriginal woman from Australia, so my biggest thing would be the book The Dreaming Path. So it basically speaks about how connection to culture and nature and our own selves is really the path that we're meant to be living in life. It's just this beautiful unfolding of identity, and yeah, I definitely recommend it.
I was talking to my daughter the other day about Indigenous elders. Back in the day, they would send each other messages through their dreams. And I guess I forget how it came up. She started asking me, kids ask these crazy questions and like, how do we dream? Why do we dream? What's happening? And I'm like, so I started sharing that story, and it's fascinating when you see that these elders like had all the wisdom and the knowledge so long ago, and now we're here like, hey, we know how to do science, and we're proving all of the stuff that they've been saying forever.
I think the wisdom was in all that simplicity, right? And we took it for
Yeah.
granted. It's beautiful to go back to. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It's by Paul Callaghan, The Dreaming Path.
Amazing. Steph, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.